When you get feedback on a writing project you've been working on for a long time, you may feel like that feedback only tells you about your final product. However, it can be more helpful to think of feedback as a measure of how well you navigated the writing process. Final drafts are just the last step of a process that begins as soon as you get the assignment. Each of these steps contributes to the quality of the final draft, and mastering them gives you greater control over what your final draft looks like. If you've ever written a paper at the absolute last second, and who hasn't, you probably know that writing all at once, without a process, can leave you with a paper that's nothing like what you expected. Most English teachers agree that the writing process looks something like this. The first part of the process is called invention, or pre-writing. As its name suggests, invention is when you literally try to invent ideas worth writing about. In other words, this is when you try to pick a good writing topic. The OWL offers a separate video course on invention. Click here to watch that video. You're probably already familiar with the next step, drafting. This is when you write a first-try version of your project to get your ideas on paper. Though this may seem straightforward, there are actually many ways to draft. Finding a set of strategies that works for you can make drafting start to seem like a crucial step on the way to a great final product, rather than just a headache to deal with for your class. Here are some drafting strategies that help us get our ideas into a draft as quickly and clearly as possible. First, start with what you know, even if this means starting in the middle or at the end of your paper, or with content that you know you'll eventually change. Often, you won't know what sort of beginning is best until the rest of the paper exists, so don't waste time searching for the perfect opening lines. Just write what you know, and be willing to fill in the gaps in your writing later. As you write, you may eventually hit a roadblock, some point where you don't know how to continue. When this happens, switch to another part of your paper and keep writing. If you do this every time you run out of steam, you'll eventually have a finished draft outside of the holes you need to fill in. Filling in these holes is a lot easier than writing the whole draft front to back. Plus, you waste less time sitting around thinking of what to write. As you get into the swing of things, you may find that inspiration starts coming faster and faster, maybe so fast that you can't even keep up. Don't be afraid to write notes to yourself to keep your thoughts straight. Many word processors come with a built-in comment feature, but you can also just write notes in the body of the paper. You may want to mark them so you don't forget to remove them eventually, though. Scratch paper and sticky notes also work. Successful drafting can also be about what you don't do. For instance, you may want to worry less about mechanical issues like grammar, spelling, and punctuation than you normally do. Drafts are more about getting your ideas on paper than they are about getting everything right. Sweating the small stuff can make this step a lot harder than it needs to be. Plus, you're going to proofread your work when you write your final draft, so why do the same work twice? The next step in the writing process is the revising stage. Here, you take the feedback you've gotten on your draft and use it to polish your writing into a high-quality final product. First, read your feedback carefully. Then, order the main criticisms in terms of how seriously they affect the quality of your writing. Get to work on the problems which seem the most severe first. These will vary from paper to paper, but here's a general order that will work well for many papers. Addressing the biggest problems first ensures these things will get the most attention. It will also ensure that you do the least work overall. For example, if you revise your paper for mechanics before you change its main argument, you'll need to revise for mechanics again before you turn it in, because you're likely to put new errors in when you write your new argument. Not so if you change the argument first. However, before you get too far into your revision, try to get a little distance from your writing by taking a break. Sleeping on things is great, but even a short break will be a big help. When you return to your writing, it will seem fresh to you, almost like someone else wrote it. This makes it easier to be an absolutely ruthless editor. Don't be afraid to retool big chunks of your essay. Make sure all paragraphs have a clear purpose, and make sure they make their point succinctly. If you can't figure out how something fits in, or you can't summarize the purpose of a certain section in just a few sentences, toss it. Another way to get distance from your writing, and to get extra feedback too, is to have a friend help with your revisions. Showing your work in progress to someone else can be a little embarrassing, but it's one of the best ways to get new insights. Other people's brains work differently than yours, which allows them to see things in your writing you may have missed. We must stress that there's no single correct way to draft and revise a writing assignment. You will find that some strategies work well for you and others don't. But if you're aware of strategies like the ones in this video, you can start putting them into practice and seeing which ones work. So the next time you get a writing assignment, remember that there are many ways to approach tasks like drafting and revising. Every choice you make in the writing process has ramifications for your final draft, even if they aren't immediately obvious. Making little changes to your writing habits early on can produce a radically different final draft. When it comes to writing, never be afraid to try something new. The results may surprise you.